Hi, everybody. It's Jeff. I'm going to give this video specifically on a diversity and inclusion topic about uh, kind of this whole thing about white privilege and Black Lives Matter. And it's not specific Black Lives Matter, but it's related to that and all that things. And just my perspective of having kind of my perspective in my life and job over the past 30 plus years of kind of dealing with this and seeing it from different angles. So I'll start back with when I was a kind of a teenager. I would lived in a town in the west coast of the United States where there were lots of um, actually lots of people from Asia and lots of immigrants also from um, Central America and South America, especially during the summers, to be able to, that they would they would do a lot of the berry picking, so strawberries and raspberries and all that, and green beans and all kinds of produce. And I would go out and go with them. You get up in the 5 o'clock in the morning, take the bus, and you go out there and you go out there. Now, a lot of the white folks, a lot of the white kids would go out there and they just play out there and throw strawberries at each other and do shampooing of each other's hair with strawberries and just fighting and stuff and just having fun. Wouldn't do nothing serious. And then and all the Asians would be out there, you know, they would be picking, and they were fast pickers. And I always loved it because I wanted to try to get as fast as they could. I want to get as many strawberry flats done as they could get. I think one time I kind of got close, but it was really hard to catch up to them because they're just good. And all these white kids are like putting dirt in the things and filling it with strawberries and trying to cheat and stuff. But they were that was kind of my childhood or teenage years, and uh, and so and I worked in Indian reservations too, and when I was in high school, so up in Canada. But kind of the next step of working with I don't want to say minor, it's all diversity and inclusion, working with people of different cultures and stuff. And so for when I was a child and teenager in high school and all that, and even in college, it was normal to have people, And my father and my grandparents had lived overseas. My grandfather had lived his entire life overseas. Well, until he got uh, you know everyone got thrown out of China in the 1950s or the 1950s when the communists arrived. So my grandfather was he had been born there and overseas. So my father as well. So so I kind of have a background in kind of just being. It was normal to kind of be with people that are just from different cultures. It was just kind of my upbringing, and kind of a mindset, mentality. And in college, I had roommates who were from Mexico, and I had speak Spanish with him, and I had a roommate from Switzerland and speak French or German with him. So it was kind of normal, just normal thing. And then for my graduate work, I came to Europe from the United States. I got some fellowships and stuff, but I came over to do. I had already kind of got hooked on the idea of Korean languages, and I'm not going to go into the details of that. See the the video on why Jeff Allen got interested in Korean language, and there's a whole thing about that. But the what was important to see is that I came to work in the department of my studies were in the Department of African Linguistics in the University of Lyon too, and so I did my master's, my doctoral, work with people that were kind of in that department. So I had a lot of friends, peers, friends, teachers that were doing African languages, and all the students were Africans. They were all pretty much all Africans coming from Africa, different places and different locations in Africa to work on their languages, especially in the phonetics and the phonology lab and all that stuff. So I had lots of friends from just all over Gabon and Cameroon and Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria. I'm just thinking of a few. I mean, that's just as there are those too, but those are kind of the majority of them. Um, then so I did my degrees in Caribbean languages, which is again, these are derivative languages from languages spoken in different places. Africa, kind of mixed up with French or Spanish, English, or whatever. But I don't want to go into details of that. But so it was kind of that was my thing. And so then so I kind of got that background of doing that, and being very, open to working with just a lot of my friends were black. It just was normal, just was normal. A lot, half my friends, at least half my friends at the University of Illinois they were from all these countries. And one of my good friends was as well. Um, to kind of fast forward a couple of years, one of those friends actually came to the United States, or went to the United States to do a PhD in the U.S. And he went to the University of Illinois in Champaign, Illinois, and then my wife, we moved to Indiana, but then at University of Indiana, and I moved on quickly to go to Caterpillar, which the big yellow machines that was in Illinois as well. So at that point, my friend was finishing up his PhD, and I was, there was a job opening for a French linguist, and I was, kind of filling that hole while doing other things, and we just needed a French translator. So I, suggested him, and he got hired. And so, that was, hey, we're working together in a different environment. 2 years later, and so he was from Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, and he the first thing he would do when he came to Caterpillar is, hang out with all the other Afro Americans, and that was kind of a shock to him. It was a real shock because he discovered a whole nother kind of view of what it means to be black, and he was just shocked that when people would, these colleagues would be blaming him that his ancestors had been captured, and that's what put all these Afro Americans into their current situation. They're blaming him and his ancestors for it, and he was like really shocked. He just would say to them, our ancestors, not my ancestors, but our ancestors are rolling in their graves over what you're saying, because it wasn't their choice to be captured by their fellow countrymen of other tribes, and then being sold to the slave traders, and then being brought here to the U.S. and all that. So he stopped eating with them. He just was shocked, and then the whole Ebonics thing, and the whole, African, whatever, there are different names for this, African American English and all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of following that because it was kind of the thing at the time in the mid 1990s and all that. So that was kind of a big thing at that time. And then and then I'd worked, I got Carnegie Mellon, I got hired there, and I had I lab with three different, national ethnic groups. I was hiring people from different languages, and including Haitians. But I had lab of, three different people, and they're all different skin tones, just different types. So it didn't had all different, the range of them. And so I got to hire people, and if you want to call it discrimination, I was discriminating because I had to have people that speak the language. So it's kind of, so whatever language they need to speak the language, and tend to have the skin color and the physical traits that go along with that culture. So it was a bit of that. I come to, have, went through that, and understand that, and then coming to back to France. My wife and I, we adopted a child. We adopted an African child at the age of, he was 1 year old, and so we arrived, and he was kind of, milk chocolate, if you want to call it that, cafe au lait, and we were both vanilla, kind of this kind of, I don't know how to call us, we're just pale. Um, I got more gray now, but um, so we were walking around with this little baby, that just, and it was kind of obvious when we had the two of us and we had a baby. It was kind of, well, it might, some people kind of wonder, did she have a child before or something? And then we got married or so. That was kind of, but then we had a white child. We had a biological child afterwards, and it was kind of like, you get these kind of funny looks. Okay, well, whatever, no big deal. But when he arrived, when he was a baby, the neighbor just, the elderly neighbor came out, and he just made a statement to the effect that, you know, that's good, but when are you going to have the vanilla flavored one? And that didn't go over very well. I didn't punch the guy because I didn't want to like make an enemy, and then that spreads. And you don't want to do that when we're a foreigner in a country, and then you break all your relationships with other neighbors and stuff. That doesn't go over very well in France, so couldn't do that. But I just didn't, you know, just keep the relationship kind of, uh, stay away from that kind of stuff rather than punch him. So, um, but the but then a while later, I did work for an employer um, that uh, I came to a new job. I had a position where I came to a new job, and there was another job actually open at that the job as well. And I did bring along a colleague from my previous job, who was looking too. So he was kind of dark chocolate Guadalupan, um, and he he came on, and I came at the same time. This my new job. But when I got to my job, I was supposed to this new employer. I was supposed to, they didn't have anybody doing the things in the department I was supposed to be running. So I said, I need people to do the work. I mean, this is support and professional service. I need people to do the work. I need people to answer phone calls and do the customer support. So so they opened a position, one position, great. Um, but I don't. I had 30 candidates and all that, and went through them, and the people I kind of find are who, I can find people with degrees and stuff, but I didn't care about the degrees. I didn't care about the degrees they had. I didn't really give a rep, to tell you the truth. What I cared about is they could actually do the job. And the kind of people I found that would be too good at that is kind of black folks that had taught technology, computers, how to use a computer and stuff in kind of ghetto areas in Paris area, outside of Paris. And that's what I wanted. I wanted that kind of person because they're going to have the skills to be able to get through anything. And all these, white kids that just had degrees, I didn't care because it was obvious they'd last like 2 weeks. They would want to get out of it because they wouldn't be able to handle just taking phone calls out and just dealing with, stuff. So, so one of the days in our directors meeting with the vice president and the CEO, one of the directors says to me, kind of off the cuff in the directors meeting, it's like, do you only know black folks? And boy, so that can be disruptive to people. Not for me. So I pull out my business card out of my pocket, put it on the table, and I say, hey, folks, you remember that little title in front of the business card there that you hired me for? Well, that happened to be, if we don't want to remember, for those of you that hired me, and for those of you that weren't involved in the hiring process, that little title happens to come from the Department of African Linguistics. Guess what? In the countries in Africa, those languages, it's all black. So kind of statement. Then I said, and on the top of it, kind of one of the things where I'm kind of hired and kind of famous about doing is doing the only, speech to speech Haitian Creole English translation system, which in Haiti, there are very few white people. In fact, they're all black. So there's another one. And then I kind of added the third layer of, I had to get layered on here. Just got to keep just adding to it, just in this thing. And I said, my son's black. And that just like stopped. There's like the whole thing went into whoop, just universe. It's kind of like going to space and everything just like stops floating. No, they're all sitting there just kind of, they're squirming in their seats, and I'm just like smiling, for about a minute. In French, they say an angel passes over. It just means that everything's just like silence. And that was the moment. And I was sitting there just smiling for about a minute. Just letting them squirm. All of them squirm because I just waiting for somebody to open their mouth. Just somebody open. No one open their mouth. Not a person, including the CEO or the VP. Nobody. It was like in the most embarrassing moment of their entire lives. And I said, hey, guess we don't have any problems with my recruiting processes, huh? So that was the case, closed. So So been through that too. And that employer, I'm not going to mention who it is, and it would be completely different now because there's not the whole, the people are completely different. All that stuff's no big deal. But yeah, there's that. There have been the things I've been dealt with there and gone through. And then and I gave a conference talk in 2015 at one of the translation conferences about making profitable business out of minor language. And I did cite a lot of different examples of the issues of trust between the privileged and the non-privileged and all those things and how difficult it is to it's not so simple, and these are kind of trust building things that have to happen and all that. But you can go watch that. It's on my YouTube channel at the ELIA and Networking Days 2015 conference. But what I suggest is the diversity and inclusion, and I gave a couple of the other things. I've had a lot of Muslim, bosses and colleagues, and I've really found to be found to really respect, during the Ramadan, it's a tough time for them to, you can't eat and drink anything during the day and all that. You got to wait until the end of the day, until it's, sunset. And and when you're doing business and startups and stuff, it's really intense. And you've got to get through the days, and to see them, be able to have self-control and be able to, do that. It was a testimony to me of, people that just have, I can respect, and work with. And so all the people that, in the States, say 9/11, Muslims and stuff, I just say, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. You're talking to terrorists. This is not a war. This is just a terrorist attack with a few, radical people. But it doesn't represent the rest of the population. Sorry. And yeah, I'm going to say that. So, because I've had a lot of colleagues and bosses and stuff that I respect, you know, um, who are from that religious background, whatever, So that's what it is. But the what I've seen the focus over the past, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's this is imbalanced focus on the whole thing of diversity and inclusion, um, and I've got a colleague that Leah Barnard that you brought up that you mentioned in the blog when you discovered I'd done this Haitian Creole stuff, and I'd already been helping with like the Leah's the kind of the co-founder of the SAP, and the SAP we have a hard of hearing group called HEAR, HEAR. So it kind of goes with that. And so how are the hard of hearing kind of user group across the company. So I can help a lot of things with speech to text and subtitle stuff, and do a lot of services for that, and have optimized things for the needs for them and visually impaired. So I've kind of been involved in a bunch of those things too, and helped actually on a thing for the autism program to kind of help with the videos they were doing. So helped them with that, and so been involved with different things and people that just had certain needs, special needs, and helping with that. And Lee just kind of said at one point in time, in a blog with just a month ago or two ago, he just said, he mentioned I was, very an advocate for diversity and inclusion in the company, and so that's, thanks for saying that, Lee. I'm just, and then he said, this is just another example of it, all this language technology stuff for disaster relief and helping with that and stuff. So for poor countries, but the thing is that the, the there are all kinds of different diversity inclusion topics. I mean, sometimes I see so many people get so focused and so focused too much on the whole job equality between women thing. And yeah, I totally am for that. That should be just normal. But the thing is, just gets to be that all the time, and that's all the time, and it's just all the thing. I see some women posting on LinkedIn all the time. It's just like all they do. And it's like, come on, folks. There's more to it than that. There's just way more to it. There are other topics. There are other things. There are other autism, and mobility challenged, and people in wheelchairs, and hearing challenged, and visually challenged, and other challenges. Even if you just think of color blindness is another challenge. And there are kinds of things that are, more or less, just it's just difficult. And the whole thing of diversity inclusion is to be able to think about others and think about others that are different than us. And usually it's about a minority. I don't want to say minority group because I kind of, but just less numbers of people. It's just smaller. Certain groups have certain specific needs. And what we need to do is that there are just lots of different people. It's all overlapping. Lots of people have different needs, and there's not really just. Yeah, I kind of wonder if there's anybody that doesn't have any special need. We could go around and kind of make this whole list of diversity and inclusion. Everybody would fit into something at some point in time. Um, just you can think if you're even a foreign language speaker in another country, you're a minority group. So you could all kinds of things. We could find someone's some kind of they belong to something that you could say is diversity and inclusion at some point in time. And but there's this whole imbalance and focusing on the men and women job equality parity thing to the point where it's just all about that. And the reason you can do that, and I'll say it, and I think it's imbalanced, is because uh, the the it's an easy thing to do. It's an easy thing to measure because you can measure whether women have had jobs or not. They've gotten hired for certain jobs or they hold jobs because male and female traits statistics are actually on HR documents. You're marked as if male or female. Now, yeah, there are other third gender kind of stuff and all that, but that's not very spread. I mean, it's just not a common thing. So it's you're gonna have the majority of people, you're going to be able to say, hey, there's so many women had this many jobs and got promotions or something. You can measure this stuff. And it's not confidential information, whereas religion is confidential information. Your ethnic background is confidential information. Your skin color is confidential. This is not stuff you're going to put on like an HR document, a human resource document. You're not going to track it. But male and female, you're going to track it. So you do. This is always the case. Um, Maybe that will change in the future, but it's something that's trackable right now, and so it's really easy to measure it, and so that's why it's easy to talk about it, and so it's easy to promote it. But the thing is that it gets over promoted, it gets to be, come on, folks, there are other stuff, there are other things that it's kind of like just we're just talking about this all the time, and that's all it's about, and it's not all about that. It's about a lot of other things, and I hear stories of colleagues that are just they receive I hear stuff I've talked I've mentioned a few of these. It's kind of harassment. Just the whole thing of the whole do you know only black people. That's just one unacceptable thing to say. um but and I've heard comments over the years, people that just be kind of laughed at for their food diet, that they don't eat certain foods, because of religious beliefs, or and even women. What happens? You can have women that might be really really good at something, and on top of it happens to be of a ethnic group that is in a certain country that is not, it's plus not just ethnic, it's also religious. So they kind of get comments, get the jokes about that, and so kind of just all these things kind of add together, and just not acceptable for people to say. But I just want to say here too is I come from, I guess we could qualify me as what we in the United States they call a WASP, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It doesn't really matter for whatever religion you are. I mean, it's just that's the term for it, to mean that you're not the rest, um, and that you're the person that kind of is privileged. And there's a lot of truth to that, and I recognize that and accept that, and try to not um, try not to promote that, but try to promote the rest, to try to be inclusive as much as I can when I can. Um, and consider other things, consider other needs and all that, and at least be sensitive when I can. But this whole thing, I think, is a thing that is going to evolve over time. I think that the whole women and men debate over job parity is going to change over time. I think that's going to, because I think that's going to become something where we're not going to be able to say that in the human resource. We're not going to be able to track it anymore, and that's going to be really hard. We can't be tracking it anymore because then we're not going to be able to talk about it anymore. And that's going to frustrate people. Because they're not going to be able to talk about it anymore because they got to find other things to talk about, but things you can't do because it's not something you can measure. So I think this is going to be a surprise for us as we move forward. Um, but hey, this is something that uh, it doesn't need to be something we have to measure at the big level. It's got to be something we can do. You just do it. You don't. When I do things, I'm not thinking about measuring it. I'm just thinking about just doing it. It's just part of life. It's lifestyle, and it's a mentality. It's a paradigm shift. I think it'll. I think it's going to take some time for that to happen for people to But a lot of this comes down to history. History is about power. There's a lot of examples. Just go back. I mean, go back 50 years, 70 years about power. Go back 1,000 years to the Crusades. It's about power. The Crusades in the Middle East, from Europe, and then go back 2,000 years about power of the Roman Empire and the Greek. Greek kind of that all those cultures and even the Egyptians. I mean, even in Egypt there was slavery. I mean, come on, folks. And even look at the biblical literature. There was slavery there too. I mean, everything that you can study, whatever background it has, this kind of thing did exist. I'm not saying it was good. I'm just saying it existed. Um, and and mankind has struggled with this over history through history because it's all about power. And what we have to do is be able to deal with, kind of denouncing power, calling it out, and that's hard to do because it's kind of you get yourself in trouble when you do that to political leaders and stuff because that's the way you get. Depending on where you're at and where you live, some places you kind of disappear if you do that, and sometimes you're just a vocal person, so that kind of thing. So and all this climate stuff. I mean, we're going to see this as time goes. We're going to see with the internet it gets more visible, but I think that these are things that we need to talk about. We have to go through. We have to be open about, talk about, and to do it, everyday life. Just do it in everyday life. Just get it to the point where you're doing it and being honest. And it's okay to talk. It's okay to use words. I mean, where we can't say words anymore. It's like, come on. I use the word black, and I kind of joke about it being my family's you know, I call us the chocolate and vanilla family. Hey, just kind of make a joke out of it. It's okay. Um, and people just kind of have to. Jokes are tough. Okay, I'll say jokes are tough. You gotta be careful, but I think that we just need to be able to. We need to stop getting to the subject like the whole political correctness. You can't say black eye anymore, and this whole thing. I'll tell you the thing that just this whole inclusive language thing gets to the point where you can't. The white list and black list thing is, you know. Um, and master slave. There's sometimes where I'm just like, oh, I can't use the word master list or my master document because, and yeah, it's kind of like, well, the master is the kind of the one that rules over it. It's the kind of the one that's the source and stuff. And so can I actually use this word in many areas? So like, this is, it gets to the point where that you're just kind of wondering if you can use words anymore and you're just navigating through and yeah, there are other words can be chose. I agree with that. It's just that we sometimes make it so intense that it just gets to the point where we can't be saying things anymore. It's just like and I think we need to be careful what we say, but we shouldn't be overusing. I think it's always a choice, and it's always trying to think about other people as much as possible. In that point of view. So so that's my thoughts about it. I'm kind of just thinking about it. I don't have a list of points here. I'm just been thinking about it and talking about it. And these are things that are relevant to today. And you see it I see this on LinkedIn and Facebook all the time and Twitter. And so I just decided to do a video, and I didn't know how long it's going to be. So I'm sorry if it's too long for some of you. But for those that you want to think about this and digging through and want to know more anecdotes and about people who are going through it, then you've been here and hearing my examples in my personal life and how I deal with it. And I just have to think ahead when I get into situations about what I'm going to say. Sometimes I don't think too much. I just let it happen, and then just have to have a little bit of emotional intelligence in the whole answer. So, and that's always a struggle too. So, that's always that. Try not to be too emotional, but just enough. Have just that good dose, that kind of the mixture. It just has to be the right one at a certain moment of time. But so there's that. There's the stuff. And hopefully that giving you some things to think about, and wherever I'm going to post this up on LinkedIn or wherever it happens to be, and get to hear some things. And be glad to have if you've listened to that. It's a lot easier for me to say this than it is to kind of write all this out. And if I wrote it all out, you say it's too long, didn't read. But yeah, but I'm this thing you do at a coffee break. This is what you talk about with colleagues and friends and whatever. So at a dinner table or lunch table or whatever, or a break or something. I mean, this is what we do, and you can do. And it's good to bring people open and to be able to discuss so yeah. Have a good day.